Hello, and thanks for being with us to hear about what we are doing with citizen science in UNP Plus. My name is Guy Peel. I'm a scientist at the Department of Biodiversity and People at UFZ and in iDiv. And part of my work is to do citizen science together with people and about butterflies. Why are we doing citizen science? What is citizen science? Let's take the example of cities. If a city is implementing a certain measure in a given place, we want to know whether this measure actually works. And for that, we need data. We want to see how is it affecting biodiversity. In that case, one of the ways to do that is to engage citizens in doing the science that we might be interested in collecting data. Now, for that, we need, of course, also participation of scientists in guiding this process, in delivering the protocols, training people on how to actually do citizen science, but also taking the data that people are collecting and converting that into knowledge, which we can then give back to participants, give it back to the cities, and with that we can empower the citizens to be scientists, to be part of the process of learning. And with that, we are also raising awareness and we are empowering them to be part of evidence-based decision-making, which is done not only with scientists and based on data, but with those citizen scientists that participate in the better design of urban nature parks or other green areas. The reason we are so interested in doing that with butterflies and the reason it's so effective is that butterflies, as you can see from this picture, are beautiful. And that means that people like them. People are willing to go out and look at them, and they're also at the same time very important bioindicators, meaning that they are capable of telling us something about the environment. They're responding very, very quickly to changes in the environment, such as better mowing or better management regime. And that means that if we've done something good, likely butterflies will be among the first ones to respond and to appear in that area. They're also relatively easy to recognize, at least as adults, to see and identify, and that means that we can have relatively good quality data from relative beginners directly from the beginning of the project. And that's pretty important if you want to have citizen-based data that you can actually use for assessing the quality of urban parks or other areas. But more importantly, because butterflies are beautiful, it also means that we have an emotional relation to them. And with that, we can mobilize societal transitions and actions by cities, by policymakers, etc. And this was one motivation why we started in Leipzig with a project which is called VielFalterGarten. It's a bit of a word game between the words viel, which is many, and Falter, which is butterflies, but Vielfalt is diversity, biodiversity. And we're talking about the diversity of different gardens, different spaces, different green parks that were improved with the aim of bringing butterflies back to the city of Leipzig, but more so bringing people back to nature and back to the work on how we can improve these environments. Project VielFalterGarten was funded by the Bundesamt für Naturschutz, or the Nature Protection Agency in Germany, and it had officially 4 aims, which is education, conservation work, improving the management of gardens and green spaces, parks, doing citizen science together with the citizens in Leipzig, but also networking and expanding this process so that other people and organizations can participate. And eventually, there are only 2 prime actions that one can take. Either you go out and observe the butterflies so that you can learn more about what is in there and why, or you take an action to improve the management, to improve a certain park or your own garden. We had 3 partners in this project, which is the UFZ iDiv as a scientific organization leading this project and delivering the science and knowledge about butterflies. BUND, Friends of the Earth Germany, is an important partner doing the recruitment and training of citizens, which is extremely important. And of course, the city of Leipzig, which is a very important partner if you want to implement something on large areas. I'll come back to that point later. Now, what do we need in order to implement a citizen science project? The first thing is a protocol, meaning we need to know what to do. And here we adopted a protocol which was invented already in France many years ago, where people go out and collect data for 15 minutes, only 15 minutes. So the idea is pretty simple. Go out, find a place that you like, a place that you visit quite often, and then register that place at our website. then you are being asked a lot of questions about what are the characteristics of that site so that we can know how to link the data with the management. And practically you spend 15 minutes trying to identify all the butterflies you see around you. If you don't know what it is, you just register it's an unknown white or whatever it is, but then we can see also from the data what do you see and get the abundance information, meaning how many of which species, etc. And last but not least, you need to visit this site several times a year, hopefully, because there is seasonality. Butterflies are not the same if you come in April or in August. Optimally, once in 2 weeks would be great, but if people visit at least 3 times within a season, that's already enough for us to analyze the data. The second thing you need as a project would be the infrastructure to support this process. Starting with developing the IT, we developed an app, a mobile app. We developed a data portal to collect the data, to harvest, but also to present the data and to validate it. And we have, of course, a website. We developed a lot of in-hand material in order to give to people for recruitment. We had flyers, we had postcards, but also training materials. People ask what other species I see and they want to learn. And for that, they have a handout that they can recognize the common species in their area, but also education materials for schools, for kindergartens, for people who want to learn about butterflies, but also for other people who want to train others. So train the trainer material. And we also developed communication materials such as signposts. People really like the idea that if you have a garden and you stop manage a certain area, then you get comments from the neighbors. So you could put a signpost saying, well, this is not just a mess, this is a butterfly habitat. And people really like the opportunity to engage their neighbors and to start telling about what they're doing. Of course, we also had communication material for press releases, calling for volunteers. And we also wanted to engage people in learning with us, meaning that we had yearly reports and yearly events with the people. Finally, you need the infrastructure of connecting everybody, and that is done usually through social networks such as WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Instagram, Facebook, newsletter. There are a lot of communication channels, and we learned very quickly that we have to use all of them if we want to reach different types of people that use different channels. Finally, what did we actually do in the project? We did a lot of capacity building work in workshops, in lectures, online, or with walks to identify butterflies together. We had webinars, recruitment event, info stands in one place or the other, but also train the trainer event in order to teach those people that want to talk for us or for the butterflies and those that can be multiplicators of the process. We had a yearly event where we told people about the results that we had from the data that they collected and reflecting back and giving them feedbacks. And we had a lot of on-the-ground action also to foster conservation work. Management improvements require in situ consultation. We went out to the field, especially when they was working together with wild gardeners that could give more consultancy and advice. And we also learned from these gardeners a lot through the process. But we also gave plants for people that wanted to plant something in their garden and wanted to make sure that this is a butterfly plant that is really relevant for the larval development of different species. Last but not least, you have to actually collect the data. This means going out and counting butterflies. So we did it together with the volunteers did it alone or with us, and we also gave them challenges and prizes for doing that. So for instance, the best observer of the month or the year received a small prize. We also held video competition, photo competitions, and other events that allowed the feeling of a community and the feeling of doing something together and winning something and gaining something from it. So here are some examples of these events. And here are some outcomes of that, particularly in terms of the infrastructure. And I'm talking now about the human infrastructure of what we achieved in 4 years of the project so far. Starting in 2020 with COVID, we mostly focused on developing the infrastructure and materials. We only had 19 people, of which about half were our team itself. We did only a few counts, testing the app, etc. But then by the end of the official project in 2024, which is still continuing but in different constellation now, we already had 810 citizens participating, 305 sites. People conducted more than 1,200 visits and counting 11,000 butterflies. So within the many people that are registered, 160 are what you could call active observers of the butterflies in different sites, including allotment gardens, private gardens, community gardens, but also within parks, either with or without flower strips, and of course other sites like agricultural areas, fallow, etc. So we had a diversity of different sites where people counted butterflies and delivered very valuable data. VielFalterGarten is still continuing in the constellation of UNP Plus and other contexts, and I wanted to share with you some of the lessons we took from that project. One is that we need at least two, in my opinion, of three different types of organizations. The city is one very important element, because when the city is doing something, that people feel that there is an added value of joining. So the fact that the city of Leipzig was trying to improve management was very much of a motivating factor for people to join. NGOs are the ones that have the link, the best link with people, and they can recruit people, especially, of course, those that are members of these NGOs, but they also know how to put the efforts of reaching out to people. And then, of course, as a scientific process, as we're talking about citizen science, then of course you need the scientist, especially you need at least one butterfly specialist or an expert for each region to be able to support people and give them feedbacks and knowledge. If they ask what species is it, they need somebody to answer. It also requires continuous engagement by the coordination and others to give feedbacks, to communicate, to help people learning, but also to analyze their data and give back something in return to what they're doing. And so results are extremely motivating, but that also means that there are challenges, because people are demanding a lot. They love butterflies so much that they want to do something with us. Everybody wanted to have something, which means that we always had to decide where to put our efforts, and putting the efforts where it's efficient is very important also to maintain our capacities and to retain our strengths. Now, one needs to pay attention that not all people that will hear about this project will join. Maybe 1% will do that, but on the other hand, it's also very important to communicate and to educate people. So don't get frustrated if only 1% of the people actually count. That's the reality also for ourselves. And you'll have to think in advance, how do you make sure that you can continue investing? Because once you started, it doesn't make sense to stop after 2 or 3 years. You might want to establish it in a way that it will become a long-term project. So in UNP Plus, we would like to see that VielFalterGarten is continuing, becomes a German-wide project. We have the task of expanding within UNP Plus into new cities. Generally, 100 cities should be reached with different types of activities, and we will be very happy if citizen science will be one of those tasks contributing to the 100 cities task, as I call it. We also are interested in other things beyond butterflies. We want to also look at microclimate, and we can deliver instruments for measuring soil moisture and temperature for different areas and people that are interested. But we'll need you, cities or volunteers, scientists who want to have the interest in that, to join us. We will be updating the app, we will be updating the material according to your needs. So you need to want to do that, and you'll need to invest, of course, in designing your own campaign, and we are there to work with you and to work jointly in developing towards the next butterfly season, in this case, April 2025. The butterflies are not waiting. Once spring is there, they will be there as well. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.